She'll be speaking on Agile coaches as engagers.
Is it working? Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So let's get started. So I'm Amar. I'm a product owner at my own startup, and I live in the US. I also live in Bangalore, so I kind of live between both Bangalore and the US. I'm here actually just till today. I'm leaving tomorrow night for San Francisco. That's where I live. Okay, great. So our topic today is Agile coaches as engagers. It doesn't matter whether you're an Agile coach or Scrum Master or part of the Scrum team. Our responsibility as Agile practitioners is to see how can we keep our teams more engaged. So that's what we're going to talk about. So just to get a sense of what kind of roles you are doing in your companies, how many of you are Agile coaches? Agile coaches. Okay. How many of you are like Scrum Masters? Okay, great. And then how many of you are part of like the dev team? Okay. Any product owners here? Anybody who's a product owner? Okay. Okay, so you're either Scrum Masters, you're Agile coaches, or you're part of the dev team, right? Okay, great. That's a great composition. So let's get started right away, and we're going to use the liberating structure of impromptu networking to get started discussing our topic. So today we're going to solve a very important, we're going to answer a very important question. We're going to ask ourselves, how can we engage our teams more? And that's the question we're trying to answer. And by the end of this session, we would have answered this question with input from all of us here. Right? So that's what we're going to do now. So let's get started with impromptu networking. Any of you heard of liberating structures, impromptu networking? Okay, how many of you are familiar? Okay, I see a few hands up. And I know we discussed this at the last conference we were at. So liberating structures is just one way of engaging people. So we as Agile coaches or Scrum Masters, we work in teams, right? And we have to engage our team members. And imagine if nobody's engaged in your team and everybody's thinking of just leaving the company. They don't like to work, they're not interested in the work. What is going to happen? What happens? Productivity drops, right? And we don't want that. So how do we make our teams more engaged? So in our impromptu networking, what we're going to do, so this is a liberating structures microstructure. So just for those of you who are not familiar with liberating structures, there are 36 microstructures that you can use within your teams to build more consensus, to involve everybody, to have them share their opinions. Because what happens when everybody gets a say? When everybody has a say in what you're doing, what happens? People are more engaged, right? Nobody likes to just be spoken to. Everybody wants to be involved, right? And that's the experiment we're going to try here today. In our 30 minutes together, we're going to see if we can involve all of us to answer the question, how do we make our teams more engaged? All right, so here's our impromptu networking. Get together with just one person. So first get up and start pairing with one person and discuss how engaged are you right now in your company. How engaged do you feel you are right now? Both in your team and in general in your company, how engaged do you think people are? Are people leaving frequently? Are they unhappy? Are they burned out? Are they stressed? Do they maybe not like to come to work? What's going on? So just kind of discuss what do you feel is the level of engagement in your team and your company, right? So first step, we're going to take a minute or two. You're going to pair up with one other person. And then we're going to switch partners and pair up with one other person. The whole idea is to get a sense of the room, talk to other people here. All right? Okay, so let's get started. So find a partner, random. Just find somebody in the room and get started. Talk to them, discuss how engaged you feel people are at your work. So we have 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah, basically it's very fast. It is comes from the so it's more taking, so it's more fatigue or laid back. So basically there's no anything to do things good. And they've been in the system for a long time.
Okay, so round one is up. See if you can find one more partner. So not the current partner, just switch again, find somebody else, and continue to discuss engagement in your company. So just find a new partner. Anybody else? Yes, yes. You need to continue to discuss how engaged you people are in your company. Okay. Anybody who has to change partners? Everybody needs to change partners. So how was that experience of suddenly getting up and meeting 3 new people? That's good? Okay, great. And standing always helps you get more oxygen to the brain, right? It's always good to stand up and move around. Okay, great. So What are some things that came up when you talked to somebody and you asked about engagement in their company, or you talked about what is engagement in your company? What are some thoughts? Does anyone want to share one or two things that came up? Anything at all?
Any motivational factor came up when we discussed
Okay.
when the transformation is happening.
Yes.
Some of the folks are feeling really empowered, really
Yes.
engaged, but at the same time, some of them because of miscommunication or any other reason,
Yes.
they are feeling that they are not really required.
Right.
That anxiety,
Yes.
that fear,
Yes.
going to use my company because of this transformation.
Right.
Because of that thought process, engagement is just need.
Yes, exactly. So that provokes anxiety, right? Because they don't know, their roles are shifting, they don't know, are they going to be needed, not needed, what is expected from them. Yes, absolutely.
Another point came out, like you mentioned that companies intentionally giving exposure to the employees in the right sense so that they also grow like horizontally as well as vertically.
Yes.
And that keeps them engaged because they are sure that they will keep on getting the same growth, right? That improves engagement, and that is very important.
Exactly. And Scrum talks about, or Agile in general talks about cross-functional teams, right? Which means you have a breadth of skills. You can't just have one skill only, because then the team isn't always cross-functional, right? So we always have to build these, what is called these T-shaped competencies, breadth and depth, right? Because everybody has to jump in and do the work. So whatever that work might be. Okay, great. All right, any other insights you want to share?
When I was having a discussion with Kapil, DJ mentioned that in the Scrum meetings, they ensure that everyone is engaged and in all the decision making, everyone is inclusive. So in that
Yes.
way, the trust is built among the people. So
Exactly.
that everyone is-
Yes, more participation and inclusivity.
So we
Yeah.
need to make sure that everyone is included in all the
Exactly.
decision making process
Yeah.
so that the trust can be brought.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So, I have a few facts which can just help us understand how big of a problem engagement is inside of Agile teams. One of the surveys done by ADP, which surveyed about 19,000 people around the world, the data they came up with for India specifically, and they had country-wise data. For data for India specifically was that engagement levels at companies is just 22%. That means that out of 100 people, 22% really enjoy their jobs and are engaged. The rest are just not happy to be there at all. They're looking for new jobs, they don't want to go to work in the morning, they're just not engaged. Sometimes they're bringing their bodies to the work, but their mind is not there at all. They're not happy to be there. This is a very big problem, right? Out of 100 people, 22% are engaged. The rest aren't. That's a very big problem on your teams. Here's one more. Across the world, over US dollars, $605 billion plus are spent every year in disengagement costs. How do we calculate disengagement costs? That's the cost that's calculated by saying, one is a replacement cost, so you have high attrition. People are leaving every 3 months or maybe every 6 months, every 1 year, so there's a replacement cost. And there's also this cost about, there's also the cost of actually, when disengaged employees actually discourage customers, they talk bad about the company, they say, don't ever work there, it's like a horrible company to work in. That's also a cost to the company. So when we put all of that together, there's a company called Gallup in the US that does these mathematical calculations and comes up with the disengagement cost. It's found to be $605 billion in the US alone, and worldwide it will be a much, much bigger number. So that is the scope of the problem of disengagement in the workplace. One more fact. 31% of workplace issues is caused by people issues. So when you go and ask people, why are you stressed at work? They say, because I have a horrible boss, or I have horrible team members, and they scream, they shout, they don't include me in decisions, they talk behind my back. So it's people issues. People issues make up like 31% of the stress that's caused in the workplace. So this is something that we can think about as Agile coaches. How do we bring about that inclusive environment? How do we help people feel better at work? How do we take out these stressors for people? Because it's our job to make our teams more productive, right? And the fourth point is, so a lot of companies have this culture that you work longer, you get promoted faster, right? So we always kind of encourage people to work longer, and we think that people who will do that, the bosses will be, happier with them, and things like that. This entire culture around working longer. But working longer actually doesn't make us more productive. And again, research has found that. There's a very interesting book by Professor Jeffrey Pfeffer. He's a Stanford University Business School professor of management, and he has been researching this issue for many, many years. He has a book called Dying for a Paycheck. It was just released by HarperCollins in 2018, where he actually talks about the tremendous health costs of the long hours of work that we do in companies, and that it's actually a negative effect. It doesn't help our productivity at all. It actually makes us less productive. So I have his book in the references and resources section, and by the way, I will put up the slides on my LinkedIn profile, so you're welcome to download the slides. But just something to keep in mind, that always working harder and longer doesn't always translate to more productivity. One more interesting thing. So one of the studies that was done by a company called ComSci. So ComSci is America's largest employee assistance and well-being services company. And one of the studies they did found that almost 95, so 64 and 31, so that's what, 95% of employees in a company are stressed. So when they asked them, do you feel stressed? They said yes. Some are extremely stressed, so they said, I can't even breathe at work, I feel so stressed. And some were moderately stressed. But 95% were stressed. Only 5% said, no, I have no stress, I'm like totally fine, I love my job. That's incredible statistics. 95% of your team members are stressed. That's a very serious issue. There's one more fact, the impact of stress on daily productivity. So when they did this research, they found that of the people who are stressed, they tend to lose anywhere between 15 minutes to 1 hour a day because of the stress they're feeling. Because what happens when we're stressed? We can't focus, right? We can't do good work. We make more mistakes. We become slower. So the cost of stress is anywhere from 15 minutes to 1 hour a day in lost productivity. So if you just think about this in your team's terms, assume you have a team size of just 10 people. Assume 95% are stressed. That's 9 out of 10 of your team members are experiencing stress. Of that 9 team members, almost 42 or 30, about 75% are losing an hour a day in productivity because they are so stressed. So that's like 7 to 8 hours a day lost on a team of 9 people. You have one invisible person sitting there, that means. Because 8 hours of work a day is one person, right? But 8 hours a day you're losing because of stress. So what does that mean? You have one invisible person on your team, and that team member's name is stress. And 8 hours a day is gone because of the stress of your team members. That's remarkable. What would happen if you could get back that 8 hours in your team? Your productivity will rise, right? So these are very serious issues. In the US, this is an incredibly serious issue that companies are ready to spend billions of dollars to solve. Because it leads to attrition, it leads to disengagement, it leads to all sorts of problems on the team. So these are just some things to consider. So I have an exercise, an activity in mind for us. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the liberating structures 1, 2 for all microstructure, and we're going to talk about this problem. We're going to try to solve this problem of engagement together. So what does that mean? First, we're going to think of what factors do you feel actually reduces engagement in your company or anywhere. Think of, all of us have changed jobs, right? We've changed jobs because we didn't like our boss, we didn't like somebody in the team, we couldn't work together, the company had very inflexible policies maybe. So what factors reduce our engagement and make us want to leave our job? Like, when do we say, I'm done, I don't want to work here, this is not a good environment? So what factors make that happen? Maybe you have inflexible working hours, maybe the company expects you to work very long hours, maybe There's always deadlines to meet that are impossible to meet. So what kind of factors, what makes us, what reduces our engagement level, not increases, reduces our engagement level and makes us want to leave, right? So here's what we're going to do. For 1 minute, you're going to think of ideas on your own, and you're going to write those ideas down on a post-it. So let me hand out some post-its. So can you just pass some of these on? Yeah, so just think of ideas to reduce engagement. 1 minute on your own, and then we're going to pair up and discuss. Okay, so 1 minute on your own, and then we're going to pair up and discuss. So just write down whatever ideas are coming to your mind. Anybody needs more post-its? Okay, so yes. What would make you leave your job? What would reduce your engagement? What makes people in your company leave? What kind of policies right now make people leave? So jot down your ideas. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pair up. So we're going to find a person, preferably find somebody who have not met yet. So of the 3 people you met, find somebody you haven't met yet. Okay. And we're going to pair up and think of more ideas. So this is called, in facilitation, we call this convergence. So we're talking about a lot of different ideas right now. So pair up. So just find a partner. So just get up, find a partner, and start to think of some more ideas. So just exchange some more ideas. Think of some more ideas. Find somebody you have not met yet. A new person. and you had 1 minute to discuss in your table group, with everybody in your table group, some of the things that you discussed. So 1 minute to discuss inside of your table group. So any other ideas that you can think of, any new ideas, anything you discussed. Okay, great. So our 1 minute is up. Any ideas that any one table group, like, do you want to throw out? Okay. Yeah.
Then skills as it like if I first say I will just I will be aware of
Yes.
then unnecessary strong deadlines.
Exactly. Yeah.
HR issues.
Yes. HR issues.
Trust deficit.
Yes. Trust deficit.
5-6 points.
Okay. Perfect. Very nice. Any other group wants to throw out some ideas? Yes.
So we spoke about lots of trust within the team members, the trust factor within the team
Yes.
members.
Trust factor.
Blame game, if we see in between our
Yes.
persons.
Blaming each other. Yes.
Respecting people.
Yes.
If a pressure is there and a senior person doesn't respect that pressure.
Exactly.
The roles and responsibilities is not clear.
Yes.
Culture and culture of appreciation.
Yes.
If that is also not there.
Culture of appreciation not there. Yes.
And work-life balance, like lot of pressure,
Yes.
a lot of deadlines. So
Yes. Like the work long hours
Yeah.
paradigm, right? Yes. Exactly. Okay. Great. Any other quick one or two things you want to throw out?
The very common thing which we noticed was respect between peers and subordinates.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Not feeling respected. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And new learning culture, that is also very important.
Yes, if that culture doesn't exist, to learn new skills. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, excellent. So what we're going to do now? So now we talked about things that make people leave, right? Things that bring down engagement. So now we're going to see the other side. How do we build up engagement? And this was very useful because you thought about what brings down engagement. So now we have to think about how are we going to bring it up in our teams, right? So here's what we're going to do. So this is Gallup's engagement metric. So Gallup is a US company that studies this concept of engagement. For many years it has been researching how to build engagement in teams. And they found there are 12 things that can really help with engagement. Now there are of course more. All the things that you talked about, trust, respect, no learning opportunities, all these are very valued, no appreciation culture. But Gallup found that these 12 things, if at least these 12 things are there in the company, that can really boost up engagement. So there are 12 questions that they ask, and these are very simple questions. And they've had this for almost 20 years, and they still believe these are the 12 things that can really build engagement in the company. And they're simple things like, I know what is expected at work. Because so many times people don't even know what is expected. What are they being measured against? And when the performance, the time comes for performance appraisal, they're surprised to see the results. Because they don't even know what they're getting measured against. So things like at work, my opinions count. That's what somebody said from there, right? That if you're not engaged, if you're not involved in that decision, if it's not participatory, you feel like your opinions don't count, right? So here's what we're going to do now. So there are 12 questions, and we're going to break up as any Agile team. We're going to self-organize around these 12 questions, and we're going to try to find solutions. We're going to try to see what we can do in our Agile teams, starting tomorrow, to help build engagement. So we're going to use 1, 2, 4 again, the liberating microstructures that we just used. And what we're going to do is, here I listed out those 12 questions. So the 12 questions that we saw, I have them on sheets of paper here. So first you're going to decide, so self-organize, and you're going to select a question. So like if group 1 wants to come here, group 2, group 3, we need 12 groups. You have to find a way to self-organize quickly, okay? Be part of 12 groups. Or do you want to do numbers, like go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that? Do you want to do that? Okay, so do we want to start from there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,
11,
Okay.
12.
13,
No, you start again from 1 because there are 12 questions. No, you're 1. Okay.
3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
8.
9,
10, 11,
Oh,
1.
1.
2, 3,
4.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Okay, we've covered everybody. Okay, so now And get together in your group. Yes, whatever your number is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it back here so that you can see your question here. Okay. Because I yes. So here's what we're going to do. Guys, if everybody come in your groups, so just give me a second. Let me explain what we're going to do. So we are going to, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 1 minute. Okay, so we're going to skip the first step because we're a little bit short of time. We're going to think of some ideas for the question we have selected. Okay, so if you are number 7, number 6, number 5, whatever your question is, think of ideas. Think of ways you can build engagement for that particular question. Got it? So if that question says, okay, guys, first listen to the instructions. Okay, so first think of what things you can do starting tomorrow to build engagement for your question. So if your question is, say, whatever, and it says, at work, nobody cares about me. I feel nobody cares. So what can you do to build that concern and care into your teams, right? So find solutions in your groups. Find solutions. Try to come up with at least three solutions for your question. Okay? So let's take 2 minutes to do that. Got it? Anybody have any questions? Okay. Write your ideas on post-its. So we're going to put up our ideas here on the wall. Okay, so write it on a post-it. Or post-it. Yes, you have to write your idea on a post-it. So discuss your idea, write it on a post-it, and then put it up on the wall. Okay, as you're done, you can start putting it up here for your question. So see if you can put at least 3 ideas. 3 ideas at least. Okay, are we done? Okay, who hasn't finished? Let's wrap up. 10 seconds, that's it. Let's put our ideas. If you don't have 3, it's okay, you can just put up 1 or 2. Okay, are we done? Okay, so I think everybody's done, so let's get back to our seats. So I want to quickly summarize what we just did. So here's what we achieved. In our 30 minutes together, we first identified the problem. We saw how serious this problem is. What kind of dollar amount of losses companies face because of this problem. And then as a group, we put all our brains together and we came up with ideas. We used liberating structures like 1, 2, 4 and all. And we used the liberating structure of impromptu networking to get to know each other. We discussed more ideas together. And first we discussed what's the negative of it. And now we've discussed what's the positive. So first we discussed why do employees leave. And now we've discussed how can we increase engagement, right? So at the end of our 30 minutes together, we have a full concrete list. We have action items that we can start doing tomorrow. And I encourage you, I know in the interest of time, we don't have time to actually go there and read all this, but I do encourage you to go and see what others have written so that you can see if you can take back some of these to your company tomorrow. Or take photos of this, because this is 30 of us working together. 30 minds is attacking one problem. And that's very powerful. And that's the power of facilitation. We engaged everybody, right? Is there anybody in this room who didn't feel heard? Nobody, right? We involved everybody's opinions and we came up with this idea of what to do next to address this problem. Alright? So I hope you found this useful and I hope you're able to take back something tomorrow to start implementing in your company. Alright? Okay, well thank you for your time. Thank you. It's a great honor to be here.